Here is an EO Alive Grande story.
Our special guest this week is Union County Sheriff candidate Bill Miller. Parole officer and former sheriff's deputy, Miller told us about his vision for holding office.
Hey, EO Alive TV, I'm glad that you're here with us today, and I'm thankful to have today Bill Miller, who is running for Union County Sheriff. And Bill, hey, thanks a bunch for taking the time to connect with me today.
Not a problem, Brent. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So, Bill, let's start by, for the folks that don't know you, tell us about yourself. I don't know, kind of your life story in a short synopsis of, I don't know,
Sure.
just whatever you want to tell us about yourself.
So I'm 53 years old. I moved to Union County in 1982. I was originally from Baker County. Went to Elgin High School, graduated, dated, and then married my wife of almost 35 years now. Joined the military. Was in the Air Force for 4.5 years. Honorable discharge. I spent some time overseas. Eventually, I became a sergeant and led a weapons crew. Came back to the States and ended up going to work in one of the local sawmills. That job became unstable. I had a very young family, so I wanted something little more solid for my future. So I did that for about 9.5 years. Decided that things were unstable, so I chose to go ahead and start a career in law enforcement. And I ended up at the Correctional Institute in Pendleton. I worked there for about 1.5 years, got certified, and then former Sheriff Steve Oliver hired me into the jail. And I worked there about 1.5 years, I believe. And lo and behold, because of loss of timber receipts to the county, 4 of us was laid off. So I decided to go back to college. I'd had 1 year prior. Went back to college and graduated at EOU. In the meantime, I'd been reserving on the road, both for Elgin and Union County, and along with my course load. So, and working odd job. I had a couple odd jobs too, state parks and one of the trailer factories. So I was pretty busy during that time period. I learned quite a bit in college. Basically, I paid a lot of attention to my classes in political science and learned quite a bit. From that point on, I was hired, I think within a week after I graduated, by Dayton Sibley at Elgin Police Department full time, because I had been reserving. He saw how I worked and he trusted me, and I learned a lot. Small town policing is very, very difficult.
Mhm.
That was right, I believe, about 2000 or 2001. After about 1 year, Boyd Rasmussen offered me a job, and I took that. And I was hired there, I believe, in 2005, and I've been there since 2013, or excuse me, 2018. I left fall of 2018. Back up just a little bit, I'd also done a lot of volunteer work over the years. I was a volunteer ambulance driver and a firefighter for Elgin. I also was a certified member of Union County Search and Rescue. I left the sheriff's office in 2018 and took a job at parole and probation. So I have very, very broad experience in law enforcement. I love this county. I grew up here. Raised my kids here, and that's the short tale of where I'm at and why I'm here today.
Yeah. And that is a wide variety of experience, which of course is a great asset when you're running for a position like you're running for. So tell me some of the things. I mean, you're familiar with the county, clearly. Grew up here. Tell me, what are some of the things that are important to you that if you were elected, you would work on and you would emphasize?
Well, definitely the drug problem. I mean, everywhere I go, almost every response I get on Facebook is those questions are asked because it's glaring. It's something we've all fought, all law enforcement fight and continue to fight. It's something I want to make an emphasis in my campaign, and if I'm elected, I have a broad range of experience specifically in drug enforcement. I was at about 2007, a couple years after I was hired, I was promoted to detective, and I worked the drug task force for several years. And at some point, I was promoted to detective sergeant and supervised the drug task force. I supervised and worked on it when it was a multi-agency drug task force, and then eventually it was pared down to just the county deputies were on the drug task force for a variety of reasons. There was grant money cut, philosophies in how to address street crime by different agencies. So the brunt of it has been the sheriff's office. I would do my best to expand that drug task force and try to get back to a multi-agency drug task force. I have the experience and the relationships to do that. When we had the grant, I oversaw our portion of the budget of the burn grant. That went away in 2013. Whether there's grant money out there available right now, I'd have to look, but I do know that there are other ways to do that. We can approach city council, we can approach OSP at the highest levels and look for funding any way we can, but I'll need people behind me to do that. So the drug problem is a problem I'm not giving up on by any stretch of the imagination. My job at parole and probation, I see it every day, the struggles that these folks have. I've learned a lot about evidence-based practices, trying to get them to change their behavior, their criminal thinking, and using evidence-based practices to do that, whether it be classes or just the way we talk to them, the way we interview them, motivational interviewing, positive reinforcement, those kind of things. It's an art, and it's something I'm still learning, but I've learned quite a bit already. I've actually become fairly effective, I would say. Some of the other things that I want to focus on is stability back in the sheriff's office. There's lots of rumors flying around. Some are true, some aren't. I do know that we want to make the deputies feel like they are coming to a good place to work, and that they have support from the top. I've always been a leader in the office. That should be obvious. I was promoted and I was on the sheriff's command staff for 5 years or so. For different reasons, I decided to walk away, and so have others. The challenge for me is to come back and make those folks feel like that they have somebody that's going to stand behind them and lead from the front, and help them do their jobs and hold them accountable. There has to be an amount of accountability. If there's complaints from the citizenry, it's my job. It would be my job as a sheriff. I did so as a sergeant to address those issues and make sure that we're not dropping the ball. That's part of what a leader does. Sometimes you have to do the tough things, and sometimes that upsets people. The fact of the matter is, I feel I'm ready for that job. I want those folks that work for the sheriff's office. They're very good folks. They just need someone strong that can lead them. I also want to bring back something very near and dear to my heart, is the reserve program. I was a coordinator at one point with the reserve program. I think it's important for the community first, because it's such a valuable resource for the sheriff to have well-trained staff, reserves, that can go out and do basically what a full-time deputy does. But they have to have the training and the skills. There's risk management involved there, not only for the reserve, but for the sheriff, the county, and the citizens. If someone's going out, and I'm not saying that there's bad reserves or people out there now, I'm just saying it's a point of emphasis that it needs to be a priority. There's a lot of risk involved. You just don't hand somebody a badge, gun, and car keys and say, go get them. There's a lot of inherent risks there, and responsibilities. And the citizens deserve that. If you send a reserve out there who's well trained, they get what they need. They get the service that they need. I'm sorry, were you getting ready to change?
No,
Okay.
no, you're good. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing that's near and dear to my heart is search and rescue. I was certified search and rescue before I was even a deputy. This is back in the 90s, I believe. Yeah, I did it for a few years, and things got in the way, and I had to move on to something else. But as far as time, I just didn't have the time to commit to it. Job skills, whatever. Actually, I think might have been because I went to work at EOCI. Um, that being said, I want to support them fully. They're great people. I mean, we really rely on search and rescue, not only for helping find people that are lost or injured, extracting them. I mean, rope teams, people that know how to do, swift water rescue. I did some of that. I did some rappelling with them when I would train. We had to go through basically a course, winter survival, you name it, navigating through the woods, map reading. It's very, very important skills, and those people are good at it. So not only do they play a role in rescuing injured or lost people, they can play a role in criminal investigations. They can offer perimeter security. They can be a resource for us as far as logistics go, equipment on say a major crime scene or an investigation or a natural disaster, flooding, things like that. So they're very important to me, and I plan on being right in the middle of it with them. Let them do their thing and actually continue to learn from them, because I'll be quite frank, I'm a little rusty with it, but that's huge for me.
So for people who might not, you're covering a lot of good stuff. Let's go back just a little bit though. So for the folks that don't understand, the search and rescue, that is a county function currently. I mean, I honestly have no idea. And yes. Tell me where that comes. Does that come under the sheriff's area? I mean, talk about that a little bit.
It's actually mandated for the sheriff to have search and rescue, and they are part of their separate entity. I mean, they basically govern themselves, but the sheriff oversees them. It's one of those things. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And
right.
I haven't seen an issue with that at all.
Right.
I know some very, very good people that do that.
Yeah.
And they work hard. They train hard. So I shout out to them right now, because I really admire them. I know what it's like to do it, and I want to get back into it.
Yeah.
If I can make another point, quick point, Brent.
Yeah.
So I have another priority that was near and dear to me when I was on patrol. I really enjoyed patrolling the outlying areas. When I was a deputy, we got more deputies now than we have, quite a few, but I think there was 5 when I started. So we had to cover a lot of ground by ourselves a lot. I worked swing shift usually, and there were times I was the only one on the county. There was no state trooper, but I still enjoyed getting out into the outlying areas, knowing when people are in and out. They see us, interacting with them. I see say a farmer out working on his tractor or something. If I'm not interrupting him or causing him grief, I would stop and talk to him, and just to get to know him. I want to know what their concerns and issues are. I just want to know person to person and interact with them. I think it's very important that our deputies do that. I've spoken to a lot of folks since I've been out. Of course, I haven't been out knocking and talking for a couple of weeks now, but I hear that a lot, especially in the outlying areas, that they're telling me they rarely see deputies. And I want that to change. That we need to be out there. They need to know that we're working for them. We're out there. Now, granted, I know this for a fact too. You can drive by the same house in a patrol car 5 times, and they're probably not going to notice you, especially around dinner time or
right.
So. Yeah. But that's important to me that we get out. I want them to see the human side of the badge. I want them to see the human beings that we are, because we're all people. We're all different. We all behave differently. I understand that as a leader too. We're diverse. Nobody's the same. If we were robots, it would be a mess.
Right.
So.
Well, and that's good. And certainly those relationships that you build with people, showing the human side, can harvest some really wonderful things down the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's go back for a minute to the drug task force. So, and I have no knowledge. Help me understand how a multi-agency task force works and operates. We don't have that now, and it stopped because of funding, but how does that even work? How does that work?
So first thing you have to do is get everybody on the same page, and there has to be money at the table, depending on which agency is going to be a part of it. they have to be funded by their individual. Now, it used to come from the grant money, so everybody got a piece of that pie, so they could afford. Basically, it was just a position. But now they have to pay for overtime. Each agency would have to pay for their own overtime, training, etc., equipment. We also had, Loudoun County was part of that at one point as well. We had detectives there that we all worked together. So to bring it back, we would have to have a memorandum of understanding, basically a letter that we all agree, here's the rules, here's what we play by, who's in charge, and what our priorities are. So each agency head would sign off on those, that memorandum, and you go from there. And hopefully the funding's there. And like I said, it's been tried before. But it's trickled down. I mean, every agency has their priorities. So I want drug issues to be addressed, and I make that a priority. What I would need for that to happen is to have citizens behind me at meetings, showing support, showing what the needs are, and supporting me when I go in front of a budget committee, say the Grande City Council or wherever it may be. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily going to happen. We all know times are tough right now, but I think if we can look at the budgets and if there's wiggle room pulling from one line item or another enough to fund a full-time detective, it's possible. It's a priority for me, and I think it's a priority for the citizens of the county.
Okay. So you mentioned drugs. Are there other things that you are hearing from folks that is important for them from the Union County Sheriff's Office? What are the things that are important?
Well, I hear good and bad, and that's not uncommon. I mean, police officers in general, everybody likes to group us all in one lump. Where we have little differences, but they're not great. But police officers police officers in general are always dealing with people at their worst hour, their worst time in their lives, whether it be a death in the family, whether it be a car accident, you're giving them a ticket, or their kids, raising Cain and they have to be dealt with. So we typically are dealing with people in some unhappy times, and we're not always going to make them all happy. That being said, that doesn't mean we ignore things, especially if there's a primary cause, a primary component. You see, I've heard, for instance, that getting calls back, getting responded back to after a call for service, it happens. Sometimes we forget. We're human beings. But if it's consistent, then it's a leader's job to go to that person and address it. It's called accountability. If there's a very good reason why that didn't happen, then we explain that back to our constituent or the victim, whoever the complainant may be, and let them know here's why or here's why not. But it has to be addressed. But as far as overall, I hear good things about the individuals, the deputies themselves. I know they work hard. I know they care. I know they care for the community, and I want to go back and help them continue to do that. But I also want to help them improve. I also want to help them be better, because as a former leader in the sheriff's office, I taught a lot of those folks what they know now. I trained them. I was a field training officer, which is one thing that I helped reinstitute when I was a sheriff, when I was a sergeant. Our FTO program needed revamping, and that's critical. It's critical for mitigation. It shows that we've had the proper training. It shows they've been through a vetting process, and it needs to be in place. I don't know if it still is or to what degree it's held to, but there's a standard that you actually have to go to a class to be a field training officer, and you have to be consistent. You have to be honest with your evaluations of these folks moving up. So yeah, I want to go back and lead and continue what I was doing. I mean, I love teaching people. Sometimes that hurts feelings when they get criticized, but sometimes they come back to me later and say, I'm glad you did that. What your advice had helped me. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it does. So do you have any big dreams out there? I mean, if you're elected, any big goals that, might be long-term that you really would like to give leadership to?
Well, my goal is kind of like what I just said. My goal is to make better leaders, better servants to the citizens. If I'm elected and I can walk away knowing that place is whole, that those people will adopt the principles that I hold dear, integrity, transparency, and hard work. I mean, we work for you. We don't work for a paycheck. Anybody that's working there that's working for a paycheck doesn't need to be there. It's a very critical job. It's a very serious job. It's most people don't know this, but it's a paramilitary organization in a sense. I mean, we have structure, we have command structure, just like the military. It's not as strict, it's not as focused, and it shouldn't be, because we're mixing with the community. So there has to be some dampering there, but there still has to be structure and accountability. So those folks that I want to lead now, I want them to be better than what I am. I want them to carry that forward after I'm gone, if elected. That's been my goal the whole time. And I think it's important for the citizens. I mean, I'm not there to collect a paycheck. I'm there to continue doing what I was doing, and that's work hard. If you look at my endorsements, anybody that hasn't seen them on Facebook, and there's more, I have great endorsements from former law enforcement leaders in Grande, state police. I've got a retired judge endorsed me. Brian Drecke's endorsing me. I've got 2 former district attorneys. They've seen my work product. They've seen my career move forward. They know the kind of guy I am. They know I have integrity, and they know I'm going to do the right thing. They've watched me blossom into a leader, and they believe in me. And I believe with my life experience and work experience, my broad work experience, I can offer the citizens of Union County good service and very, very focused service.
That's awesome, Bill, and I appreciate you sharing that, and appreciate you sharing in this format. Normally, the other candidates, we've had a chance to do it in the studio and a little bit more of a relaxed setting, not quite as artificial, and so I appreciate you.
I
this.
appreciate the opportunity, and I don't want to forget Steve Oliver. He's endorsing me. Derek Reddington, Chief John Courtney, retired chief. He saw me early in my career, saw the first few years of me working. There's quite a few. So that's important. It should be important. It should be telling to people that those folks that were leaders in their own right are seeing who I am and what I am. And I do appreciate the opportunity, Brent. I mean, it's a dogfight. I mean, it's a tough, anytime you have a 4-way race, the incumbent always has an upper hand.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, I've never been one to back down from a challenge. And when I decided to do this, I decided I was gonna be in it to win it.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. So if someone wants to know more about you, or if they want to participate in donating to your campaign, give me the information on how they get a hold of you.
They can go to Facebook, Bill Miller for Union County Sheriff. There's a ton of information on there. Make sure that you hit the little more dot. And if you like it and share. Sharing is very important. It shows my qualifications and my background. There's a ton of information there. But mainly, you can also go to Bill Miller for UC Sheriff at gmail.com. You can email me questions and whatnot. My team is very small. We can there's an address in there to send donations to Jared Rogers. He's my treasurer, and you can either mail them, or I believe we may still have an automatic donor box you can set up with a credit card or electronically. But I appreciate it, Brian. I've been looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to serving the citizens of Union County. And I hope I have your vote May 19th.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill, for coming on, and we really appreciate it. And thank you, Eastern Oregon Alive, for tuning in. We are going to have a candidate forum for the 4 sheriff members that are running, and that is going to be on the 30th of May at 6 p.m. and the 30th of April. So please tune in then, and we'll see you next time on Eastern Oregon Live.